Hopefully that made up for all the, the tech issues earlier. Wow, those pieces are like such a little dreamscape for me, and I really like preludes because they have this obviously this improvisatory approach in the composition, and the form is just so like easy to really think about creative ideas, and those pieces I think are definitely going to be in my concert program, and we can do that in person again sometime too. I'm just going to check out some comments before I set up for the first electroacoustic piece, which is a piece with electronics. And so, hey, Brent Crawford, great to see you. And yeah, great music to listen to while cooking, absolutely. I think Gordon Ramsay would be spotted listening to some Canadian guitar music during his Wellingtons. And so, yeah. And so we have, I'm just going to look down over here. Ben is flying and floating beautifully through these great pieces. Oh, thank you, Steve. That's so nice. These are, I think you would definitely love those pieces as well. And looking at hopefully playing some more Dale Kavanagh in my repertoire in the future as well. Going to just do a couple of button clicks. And so the next piece is also by a Canadian composer, but also a Canadian woman composer. I'm very happy that this program is like almost gender balanced, actually. It just happens to be that a lot of the people I've worked with, people I've had as teachers, just happen to be women as well, and so that was an important part of my repertoire selection tonight too, for sure. And so this is a piece from a collection of solo pieces with electronics by Amy Brandon, who's currently based out of Halifax. And so this is called Scavenger, and the movement is War Games. And so what you're going to hear is a fixed electronics going in through the system, which I'm going to be listening through headphones, but also with a little bit of some cheat sheets here just to make sure. And yeah, so I recorded this movement for the inaugural 21st Century Guitar Conference. Not the inaugural, the second one, which is virtual next week, actually. So if you want to check out the events for that, be sure to just go on the 21st Century Guitar, which is on social media as well. And yeah, and on the Facebook is where we're going to see a lot of the stream there, and as well as on the website. I think it's just 21cguitar.com. Just fixing a quick tangle here. And yeah, and so this piece is hopefully it also would include this in a future concert program, as well as some other movements. I have some other friends at the conference playing some other movements as well, and so I encourage you to check that out. And so I'll just do a brief little round check here just to make sure that the tape is going to come through. Again, I think my mouse is also coiled here, so we'll just press play through the VCL player. Okay, hear that? Just gonna look at Twitch. It showed up in OBS, so I think I'll just give this one a shot. So this is War Games from Scavenger by Amy Brandon for classical guitar and electronics. Okay, I'm glad that the sound worked out there, because I remember I did an electroacoustic piece online back in the fall, and that was more or less just through my desktop speakers into the mic. But I'm glad that there was a way to kind of implement it into the stream, and that just obviously makes the whole experience like much better for obvious reasons. And so yeah, so moving on. So we're gonna kind of explore. By the way, I'm gonna test you on some terms at the end of this, so make sure you're writing down some special notes here. I said no guitarist ever, but so we have the next piece, which is one of the pieces on my debut CD, and as well as a piece I performed at the Guitar Le Grande festival last year, based in Gatineau and Quebec. And this is Shadow Prism by Jason Noble, who is from Newfoundland. There's actually a little bit of Newfoundland on my program as well, too, obviously, including myself. And so this piece here is what I would refer to as being like a guided improvisation. And you're probably wondering what exactly I'm doing right here, right now, which is I'm adjusting my tuning so that I have is somewhat like an E-flat major triad. I said somewhat because I'm not using just intonation. It's going to be, which is what J.S. Bach would use. It's like exactly on a pitch, but this is based on intervals, so it's just slightly off so that we get a little bit of this sort of mystical in-between world. And so that what that does is it really creates a lot of possibilities along the harmonic nodes of the strings. So you commonly know of like... it just creates a lot more resonance on those areas. And so also the triad itself, the two triads are famously used in Stravinsky's Petrushka. And so yeah, the A major and E flat major. And throughout the piece, obviously it was premiered by Steve Cowan, who was very excited to hear this with the those emojis. And so it's a good example of a guided improvisation. There's elements of improv, obviously, within sections where I'm given a selection of given pitches, and as well as some other linear things to kind of make this my own stamp. I've generally performed this in different ways every single time, and I'm excited to kind of hear what I'll come up with today. And so... Newfoundland composer, as well as one of the pieces on my CD, Shadow Prism by Jason Noble, which is available on the Production d'As for you guitar score collecting people out there. check out some comments. I'm so used to hearing at least a little bit of applause after that one, but yeah, thanks. That's and for, by the way, I should probably mention I talked about a CD, and like everybody's just like, what? So yeah, if you don't know already, I released digitally my debut CD, Prime. Prime being first, Prime also being the title piece of a piece by my friend Joe Donaghy, Prime Directive for Guitar and Electronics, and as well as I kind of believe that this collection of 21st century Canadian music represents the guitar in its prime in some ways. I think that we have pieces written in like 1990, such as the Leo Brouwer Guitar Sonata, that are so like played, and so I feel like we have so much to learn, and we're kind of in this situation right now where this composer-guitarist relationship has become a lot more special than ever, such as with events like the 21st Century Guitar Conference and other things as well, of course. But yeah, that piece has been great in terms of contrast, and as well as really introducing me to the possibilities within graphic scores, and as well as Jason Noble is not a guitarist, by the way, and so he really knew the inside outs of the way the harmonic nodes and the possibilities with a piece like that, and it's quite spectacular. And you can hear myself, obviously, and Steve, who premiered it, and as well as some other guitarists. Michael Ibsen does an amazing job with this piece as well, and there's and all three of us and many more play it so differently, which is one of my favorite things about it as well. Doing a little bit of tuning in advance, even though for the next piece I'm actually not using this guitar. I just want to do a little bit of setup prior to the next one, somewhere in the drop D realm. I'll deal with that after. But yeah, so back to the idea of improvisation. What we just heard was guided, and so now the next term for your test, which I'm not going to give, is free improvisation. And so that's basically, I was given a program notes and an electronic tape from my friend Holly Winter's piece, Violence, which is actually for any instrument in electronics. And so obviously I chose to use guitar because, well, that's what I play. And also I wanted to grow my electroacoustic library. That's something I've been kind of interested in doing over the last couple of years. And as well as electronics and improvisation are like these brand new little things that they're kind of experimenting with in many pieces, and as well as in solo guitar writing, chamber music, etc. And so this piece is so I also performed this at the inaugural 21st Century Guitar Conference, and it also has a place on my CD as well as one of two electroacoustic pieces there. Gonna go back to the whole rig I got going on here that's slowly getting more tangled as the concert goes on. And so obviously I think obviously if it worked last time, then hopefully it will work this time too with Amy Brandon's piece. And so I'm just going to press a couple of buttons and just do a couple little check-ins on some chats here. I see a couple of emojis down there. That's all good. And back to the program with my next electronic piece, and written by Holly Winter and premiered in 2019, Violence.
What is stronger than the human heart, which shatters over and over and still lives?
Do.
But what about his swimming career?
Why would you not believe me? Why would you have any reason not to believe me?
Okay, that concludes the electroacoustic portion of the program. Of course, it was fairly significant. That was, what, like 12 minutes of electronic music, which is more than you normally hear in a classical guitar music setting. So I feel like that was a success. And yeah, during that one, I definitely felt the urge to crank it up a little bit with the volume after a pretty delicate approach to the shadow prism. And so now we're going to go back to a key area for for those of you that are just like, okay, where's those good old like B minor chords and stuff? So we'll head back to that sort of territory with the one and only Russian composer on the program, which is especially some of you guitar heads definitely know as the famous composer of Usher Waltz, and as well as some other works, The Princess Toys. He's written some epic concertos as well, and yeah, he's very prolific in the start of the relationship with working with guitarists. I think Usher Waltz was definitely something that he wrote for himself. He was a very skilled pedagogue as well, and so with these pieces here, and so this one in particular, The Fall of Birds, which is in two movements, Andante, Quasi Passacaglia, and Toccata. These kind of came across very almost by chance, is that Koshkin, when he was around my age, submitted the Toccata to Vladimir Kuka, who was an incredible Czech virtuosic guitarist. And so then he said, this is a beautiful piece, but I think I need a little bit more. How about we include an Andante in the program as well? And so then Koshkin was like, oh my God, well, then this is the golden opportunity. He was about to perform this in a very prestigious hall in the United Kingdom. And so then what happened was he stayed up for like a whole week and didn't sleep and just finished this piece. And boy, did it ever pay off. And it turned out to be one of his real milestones of his earlier career. And so The Fall of Birds came to him in a dream as the title, basically being like the apocalypse and the world ending. And I just had to, without hesitation, include this in my concert for the end of time, right? Which is on that side, stage left. And so and so as a result, I think I've really clinged on to a lot of like storm and stress throughout this piece. And it's definitely has its really subtle and beautiful moments, but there's moments, it's really orchestral. He loved orchestral music of Shostakovich and Stravinsky, as well as heavy metal, which we're going to hear lots of power chords. But, and so, yeah, like I've really used this piece as an outlet for a lot of, the kind of time we're in, we're in a pandemic, whatever that is called, and as well as a lot of like, political surroundings, things like the climate crisis. And it's been a way to just really outlet and just, and really just kind of exert that passion somehow. We need to, and I think because art, while it's been very reactive and we use it as that kind of emotional refuge, it also has the tendency to be predictive, which is kind of scary as well. But we won't get into that side. But how so? But yeah, I'm just gonna do a little checkup on here because we went from like all kinds of different tunings. see, that's what I'm talking about. And so, also, for the first time in a live sitting, I'm going to be performing this today in its entirety. A little bit crazy about this, just hold on. Okay, and yeah, I hope you enjoy The Fall of Birds by Nikita Koshkin, who I'm really hoping I can play this for someday too. Check in on some comments again. Thank you all so much for sticking around so far. It's been a real pleasure. I love doing live concerts. It's live in this setting. I mean, because I've done some pre-recorded concerts, but I just feel like this is the closest thing we have to that kind of audience communication, and that's something I really value a lot, and I'm looking forward to obviously doing again. But this is something that I wouldn't mind seeing stay around a little bit too, because I can play for concerts for people from like everywhere. Really, it's been kind of awesome in that way. And as well as a huge thank you to all of you that are donating as well. That really means a lot, especially this is most definitely a different time for artists right now. And as well as those of you that are making pre-orders for my debut CD Prime. I'm really excited to get that out as well too. And thanks all once again. And so I have 2 pieces left in the program today. Well, one is comprised of 7 movements, which is around 20 minutes long, and it's written by my friend Steve Murphy, who I co-founded the Atlantic Guitar Society with, which I'll probably definitely do a lot of talking about in the interview part, the Q&A, and as well as who wrote me this suite, which I premiered, the premiere recording of the suite on my debut CD Prime as well. So if you liked it tonight, then you'll definitely like the entire thing in the more formatted recording studio version as well too. My movements are all in a weird order, but that's okay. We'll get to that. And so basically, these 7 movements comprise a suite known as Hypothesis of the Archons. I've been calling it just Hypothesis of Archons, and that's what it is on the CD. But that's the real name. But maybe it kind of makes it a little bit less susceptible to copyright. So maybe we win in that way. So and so the movement orders: cries, unformed, voice, choir, lament, dance, and promise. Got it right. And so generally there's a story attached to each movement, and I forget all of them except for the last one. And the last one is titled Promise. And so what happens in this kind of like alternate universe is that the world is kind of like ending. There's lots of hatred and everything happening in that's going on. And so we come from this Fall of Bird speeches, which is really kind of about that. And so then we end this kind of journey into Promise, which is what happens in the story is angels coming down and promising that things are going to be okay. And that's something I've really attached to and try to make it as sensitive and lyrical as possible, or I hope. And as well as it's such a pleasure to play. It's great for all kinds of purposes. It's wonderful as for those of you that are cooking or eating dinner, and and as well as it has lots of virtuosic high moments, especially in this first movement here. There's lots of growth and decay of very important thematic material. And so so I'll just go right into it. I'll just sort of play them through, and then I'll introduce my piece, which is going to be afterwards as well. And thanks once again. I'm looking forward to reading some more comments. It's great to have lots of you here tonight. Hypothesis of Archons by Newfoundland composer Steve Murphy. All right. There's I think the nature of the process of commissioning this piece was that it was really up to the performer, and that there isn't that many specific things regarding like articulations, dynamics, phrasing, musical ideas, and so and that's who Steve is. He's like, I want you to be the musical pilot, and then we'll kind of create something together, and that's what he does in his own repertoire, whether it's whether he's playing a Bach suite because he's a guitarist too, and so that's because of that. Like I think that's really one of the big things I learned from that process, and it's and I can even use that piece, and I'm hoping to in the future, as in like a couple months from now, make my own edition, write in my fingerings, and hopefully get that published, and because that'd be awesome. I'd love to see lots of people playing that, because in a way, kind of like Shadow Prism, there's lots of possibilities for interpretation, and of course there's such different pieces, but I think in some ways all music is improvisatory, I guess. But yeah, just gonna check out some comments before we wrap up on my piece here tonight. And so, thank you, Daniel. I'm really happy that this is going pretty well. This has been a very great experience, and and then great to see you, Becky Daly, and thank you for tuning in. And just checking in on the we have Mr. Mibson asking what piece that was. That was Hypothesis of the Archons by Steve Murphy. Okay, the big premiere time. And so this is pieces that I don't think anybody has actually heard besides obviously myself. And I've performed the fourth movement before, so it's not entirely premiered. It's just in its entirety, I think, in this one go it'll be the premiere performance, and that's really exciting. And so the piece, it has a name. It's a Suite Cognitive, and which is French for cognitive suite. And so the four movements are named after cognitive biases. And I just happen to have a bunch of friends that are doing psych degrees, by the way. So you're just like, why is he so obsessed with the brain? But so like these cognitive biases, these are things that I took one psych course, and it really taught us about like the kind of automatic and natural reactions of the brain sometimes. And so we can go into a situation with a certain mindset, such as exaggerated expectation, which is the second movement, or wishful thinking, which is extremely positive, or other things such as the third movement, Paradolia, which is a bit of a creative title, which is about really like seeing cats and dogs and like other past memories in the sky. And so also the first movement, Curse of Knowledge, is more or less about like when you know somebody that somebody doesn't. It's basically like the same premise of dramatic irony. But yeah, so ultimately these were just movements that I found the titles really amusing to really inspire some musical ideas. And as a composer, by the way, I do a little bit of that. This is my one and only guitar piece, because guitar is notoriously hard to write for, and so sometimes they'll come up with a sketch and I'm like, I hate this. I'm one of those people. So, and as well as Katie, thank you over in Twitch, said Steve said great job. So Steve Murphy was there tonight. Thank you. I'm glad to have you supporting as always. So this is the last piece, and they're rather shorter movements. So so we're kind of getting close to the post-concert talk. Thank you all once again over on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. It's great to see lots of people here. This was a blast. And I'll just give this piece a premiere, and hopefully also like the suite, I'll get this put in manuscript, because some of it is hand drawn. So we'll take care of that at some point. And so thanks to once again. I'll see you after this one, and we'll be talking, I guess. But until then, here's a world premiere for everybody of my one and only guitar composition in four movements, Suite Cognitive. start. Try the whole thing again. One more piece. I saw the good thing. I'm always checking on the OBS for the gain to show up. One more round of the of the Sweet Cognitive. Now, luckily, I never got that far into it. So, again. I usually expect to break a string or a nail or an arm on that ending, but I hope that was worth the two sound difficulties. I'm glad I caught the first one like a minute into that suite, but wow, that's what that suite feels like. And I feel like I'm very happy with what it feels like together because you want a little bit of motivic unity going on there too. And Mom says, "Oh, so you could compose music too, eh?" Moms are always the last to know. I guess the last to know until it gets on stage or something, perhaps. But yeah, so that's the program tonight. Well, I think we'll just go right into the talk because yeah, thank you all once again. And looking around at the comments, it's great to see lots of people here from, especially all my Canadian friends supporting the Canadian guitar community, which is, I think, brought even closer together since all of this has started. And yeah, thank you all, and I'm looking forward to catching up in about 10 minutes from now. We'll go back, and I'm going to go back to the banner now in a second. And it was a real pleasure. I think I'm going to have to save that program and do it in person someday. And thank you once again, Daniel Ramchatan, for inviting me to this concert series. It's probably the youngest concert artist to join the series, and it feels great. I feel like I'm doing, kind of like the right thing, and it's been great along this sort of virtual journey. And yeah, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch. And of course, thank you all for donating and making your pre-orders. I'm looking forward to getting that CD out there. And without further ado, I guess we'll sign off for about 10 minutes, and we'll come back to the stream platforms, and we'll have a little chat session, myself and Daniel. Cheers, everyone. Thank you once again.
Yeah, I'm monitoring
So-
it here. I'm trying to monitor in all three places, and the delays are different in each different platform.
Right. I just put it on there now, but yeah, should hopefully be
There you
working.
go.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
can't see the comments anymore. That's all.
Oh, it's okay. I can
Yeah.
see them over on the
Perfect.
side, so I'll just let you know.
Yep.
Great. So we're live.
It does seem to
Three-
be that way. Yep.
2, 1, go. All right. So it's yeah, that was an amazing concert, Ben. Thank you so much for all of these great performances that you gave of these new Canadian works. You're really spearheading something completely new in the Canadian scene, and that's really amazing for someone of your age, because typically when we have someone, I'm not trying to be patronizing or whatever, or sounding like an uncle or something, but, when you see somebody who is your age, you're 22, correct?
22 in a couple months, so I'm actually 21.
Oh, you're 21. Amazing.
Yeah.
So, when you see somebody who's 21 years old, it's very unlikely that they're going to be playing repertoire that is so progressive and so new and so much of it being 21st century. I remember actually doing something very similar when I was at that time. I was premiering pieces like Catharsis and stuff like that at this time. So I really, really strongly relate to know what you're going through at this time and your decisions to do this. But some of these repertoire are really, really, big pieces, and you're making big contributions to the scene. So, can you tell us a little bit about what made you take that direction rather than, doing the typical undergrad experience, which is, usually play a little bit of romantic music, a little bit of Fernando Sor, some Bach, and then if you're lucky, some contemporary music.
Right, exactly.
What made you decide I'm going to play half of my program as just female composers?
Yeah, like that was pretty awesome to me, and as well as putting my own piece out there, that's something you don't really see often either. And so I think it was dictated by the kind of experience I've had in my upbringing, and my first exposure to classical guitar. Usually it's people like, oh, I'm going to play this program of Bach, Giuliani, Tedesco, but for me it was Mr. Steve Cowan playing at the Newfoundland Music Festival, and it was all it was music by Newfoundland composers, all 21st century, all with electronics, and so that's what I thought classical guitar was. And so I had this idea in my mind that, like, okay, I'm gonna start playing some of this. I remember one of my audition pieces of the Elogio de la Danza by Leo Brouwer, because this is when I was like 17, 18, and so it's a weird way to kind of fall in love with dissonance, I think, because I think that's what happens with everybody in this kind of journey with contemporary music, and I'm also not the only of my kind, and as well as I do have quite a bit of romantic stuff, because I posted one time on my Instagram story my grad recital program, and my peers at Munn Music School, because we're such a progressive contemporary music factory, I like to think, and they were replying just like, what the hell is this? Like, why are there all these death dates? Like, we're so, because you even see people in like voice studios gravitating to like Argento and like Libby Larson, and the pianists all want to play those Ligeti etudes. And so we have a lot of appreciation for contemporary music, not just within like our repertoire that we choose as soloists, but chamber music. It's all like we want to play at Newfound Music Festival. We want to go out and we want to see the composer in the audience and bring them up and give them an applause. And we have such a good student-composer relationship too, because a lot of these pieces on my program for the CD just happen to be my peers throughout the building, and so I really applaud the experiences I've had at my music school in particular, as well as of course with Steve, who has been the pilot of for me of what it really means to be a contemporary music interpreter and somebody that works with composers. And then going forward, I think things like the 21st Century Guitar Conference and other opportunities I've had like that have really helped solidify the kinds of characters, the kinds of ideas and imagery that I hope to portray in my contemporary music choice.
Yeah, these are all great things. There's one moment they're saying that they're having a hard time seeing us, and I'm looking and there's a white screen there. So I think I know what the problem is. If you just go into your settings there, audio on Zoom,
Sure.
and you go to video, and then go to advanced in video.
Okay.
You should change your video rendering method to Direct 3D 11. Yeah, you should change your rendering to Direct 3D 11.
So I'm in settings, and then video settings, and then where do I see these advanced?
So there's a side tab on the left, and it says there's general, video, audio, share screen, and so
Right.
you should choose video.
Yep.
And then at the bottom of that, you should see advanced.
Okay,
And
I
then
got that.
on advanced, you should change the whatever your video rendering method is. It might be auto. Change it to Direct 3D 11.
Okay, and changes will take effect after you restart Zoom.
You might have to restart Zoom, but it's okay. We'll be able to see you for real, so it's all good.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll just jump
take
back to
your
the
time.
banner, I think. Okay,
It's all
just 1 second.
All
The
right.
Zoom
So
chat,
we're
and oh, there we go. I
back
saw it in
here.
the OBS. Perfect.
There we go. So it should be good.
Yep. Back to
So
original
I'm just
sound.
going to monitor here on Facebook, and it should be good. It should be good.
Okay.
We're at, yeah. It's great. It's great to hear you talk about all this.
Yeah, and as well as I think I'll just briefly touch upon as well as Sylvie Peru has been incredible with my repertoire choices, and of course she does have quite a large experience with commissioning leading composers as well, and she's very active in our Canadian scene overall, and they did lots of work with the Guitar Conference and other things, just to name a few, and so she was totally all about just letting me kind of, it's almost like a guided choice of my repertoire. And so I remember when I came to third year after the conference, I said I want to do a Canadian piece in my recital, and she was like,
Right.
okay, because then I did Jason Noble, I did, and as well as some Mertz, Diaz, and Dowland. So like we have this contrasting program, which I definitely really want to prioritize. But there is room, I think, in all these concert programs to do a little bit of contemporary music, and obviously there's people that will have that negative reaction, especially in the studio where you're coming out of just learning what a 4/7 chord is, and it's like, wow, this is like what I kind of like to listen to, is what I know. And so having that kind of open mind and really positive exposure is so important too.
Yeah, definitely. I do find that there are a lot of haters with contemporary music. You can find, but I think there are just as many for every other genre of music as well. So I think you can always win some, you can always lose some, and I think that part of being an artist, I think that if you think of the hierarchy, I think it's kind of like is guitarist, musician, artist, or instrumentalist.
Yeah.
I find the pyramid is sometimes flipped that way. But if you're trying to be an artist, I think you have to be willing to allow some people to not always vibe with it, so you can take risks. So you can do things that you can get away with. But I feel like your program today was so accessible.
That's cool.
It wasn't really contemporary music that was difficult to understand or difficult to grasp, or that was far outside the typical human experience.
Absolutely.
I think it was, yeah.
And I think that that was kind of something I was considering with my repertoire choice for Prime as well, because a lot of the pieces are very short. There's one movement by Andrew Stanland, who I'm sure rings a bell with you. It's 50 seconds long, and so that says a lot about media consumption, I think, in 2021. We have TikTok where things are 15 seconds, and like back when Vine was a thing, that was 6 seconds repeated. And so I think that by that there was definitely an advantage artistically, and as well as I think from a business perspective, to choose some pieces that are a little bit shorter, where you can really talk about something such as Prime Directive. It's about Star Trek, and Adele's pieces and how she's from Nova Scotia, and talking about the form of her prelude, and just any sort of ways that you can really get a deeper understanding, because that's going to help you as a performer too. Exactly what to emphasize and what's really going on here.
Yeah, there's so much going on there. Yeah, and so I wanna keep talking more about your album, but I also want to talk about your own piece as well, Suite Cognitive. I think this was a really fantastic piece. Could you tell us a little bit about how you came up with that piece? I know you were talking a little bit about it in the program, but Could you tell us more about your psychology background, especially? That's very
Yeah,
interesting.
I have no psychology background, so it was just like I said, like I took like this one course and like and like I talk about like my friends. We know you have these deep conversations, and I have this amazing group of friends, and you know none of them know what a minor third is, and that's perfect. And so like it's really important for me to be inspired by other things around the world, and of course, and so a lot of them like we kind of have these like intellectual discussions, I guess. And one time we kind of came up with this idea that the brain automatically sets ourselves in these circumstances, and one of which being these cognitive biases and these like I think uncontrolled factors in the way that we react and we relate to certain situations. And so a lot of that is what's coming from those title pieces, which are just definitions right out of a psych book. And so the original idea, like motivically and stuff, was that they were all going to be 4 separate homages to composers, but I don't know, like I just came onto this idea, and I think I loved the titles, and that kind of guided the whole composition process. And one thing I remember hearing from Patrick Roux was that a lot of his pieces are in his head first, and that was exactly with me, because I never actually finished it until like Sunday, because there's a couple little final touches, and I was thinking about like how I wanted this piece to come together throughout about a year or so. And so like I'm one of these composers that's like, here we go, I hate this, and then I throw it away. But then I think I finally came to a conclusion of something that really represented me, something that was genuine, and something that I think hopefully provides a statement, and something that really hopefully aims to present like, you know, the power and what exactly the influence of these things in our daily lives, because there's like hundreds of these little definitions that we can dwell upon too.
Yeah, that's really exciting. There's so much great stuff there. So how long have you been composing? Is this a new thing for you? You said you were composing for other instruments as well.
So basically, I satisfied like most of the requirements for like almost to that of a double major in composition, but because that was kind of like the route that I really enjoyed in first and second year was theory and oral skills, and so then I took intro to comp, and I was like, wow, I love doing this as well, and that really opened up my ears for things that in my interpretations, and as well as understanding graphic music, because Andrew Stenlin is so big on like really progressive new music. We had to do a graphic score assignment and things like that really get our feet wet a little bit into these brand new techniques and working with extended techniques and etc. And as well as things like indeterminacy, improvisation, electronics. And so and I think that in my composition experience, I think I tend to gravitate towards choral writing as well. I guess I really enjoy 4-part writing, but I've been singing in a vocal ensemble, I think like a professional amateur or something along those lines, named Quintessential Vocal Ensemble. We've done really well in like the Federation of Canadian Music Festivals, and as well as Music Fest Canada and Ottawa, just to name a few. And so we're doing lots of contemporary, but contemporary I mean like Eric Whitacre, which is in like B flat major, but so things that really really dwell upon the beauty of like, you know, a minor second. And so that obviously had a massive influence on how I was writing this piece as well too. Especially the fourth movement was kind of like a cantabile, chorale, celebratory, and so you can take the influence of writing in other settings and really put it on the guitar, and that I think that can give you an idea of how you want some lines to be produced, because you can sound like a guitarist, but at the end of the day, you need to have that I think a little bit of awareness of color and phrasing and breathing, especially too. Breathing is so important, and because the second movement, Exaggerated Expectation, I think the silence was the most important part of that piece to me, and making sure that these little runs, these little passages, the silence had to breathe. And that's something I obviously learned from choir as well. When everyone the choir comes together, we breathe so quiet, and then that's that little moment in between that sells so much.
That's awesome. Yeah, I did not know that you were a part of a choral ensemble.
Yeah, I'm a choir boy.
So it's a four-part ensemble, and so like, that's very interesting. You seem like you have a very versatile background in music. How do you feel that informs your guitar playing, other than helping you with legato and helping you with all these different things?
Yeah,
I
obviously
always find that there is this element where it's not just about guitar, right? It's,
Yeah, and that's something Patrick is so big on. That's something that we're really starting to become big on in this new birth, I think, of the guitar that we're going through, like a bit of a revolution with technique and how we're approaching it artistically. And I think that obviously from a technical perspective, it's really forced me to learn how to like really be an effective practicer and kind of be my own coach, as I think that's a really important skill to learn in an undergrad setting, is to know how to teach yourself and know when you have to put that metronome back on and when you take it off, and how to fix this fingering so that it works for you, for example. And so I think having a really amazing background of music educators has been incredible in my learning process. And so some people compliment in my lessons, I guess, like I learn things fast, and so like they'll say like, no, I think you should do this way because of this. I'm like, all right, I'll just do it. There's some people it takes like a couple months to kind of shake off the old habit, but I think really learning to have a vulnerability and accept that, you know, you're never done a piece, because both of us, we're playing the Bach Chaconne, and so like there's so many different ways I can come back to the piece in 10 years and still find something to practice. And so I think having that kind of well-rounded and informed background, as well as I have a pretty extensive jazz background. For believe it or not, I think since I was in about 7th grade in middle school till now, I've been playing in jazz ensembles for like 10 years. And so because I've been playing in the Mun Jazz Ensemble too, that's what I do for ensemble credit. And so I mean, like things like rhythm, articulation, I'm being really conscious of. And so and obviously I hope timing, because that's my role in the rhythm section. And so and improvisation, of course, too. Like it really opens up your perception if you're really not just kind of like horse goggled into just one way of doing things and one perspective musically. And so and other things I think that I've done, like obviously like I'm a big fan of music theory. Like I could just like spit out like, oh, Tedesco, every time he does a flat 6 chord, it's like, oh, there it is, and that kind of thing. And as well as I've enjoyed history. I've enjoyed just like generally being a music student was never really like a chore. I think the times that I found it hard is when it was not a music course. To be quite frank, it's like, geez, I would rather take my time to just get this theory assignment done really well rather than spend like so much time doing this English paper. Not to be offensive to the English majors here. I think that's so important. And obviously, like I said before, we need to have that exposure
for sure.
Yeah, to just bash everyone else, right? Yeah, it's so like yeah.
No, but I know what you mean. You know, so much of music school is often things that are not related to music. You know, so much of it is just learning how to do research and learning how to like write essays, and
or figuring out when you're going to eat in the day. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And so like I think obviously being in the position right now where I'm a student was kind of extremely helpful, because it's really, I think, got me to really force myself to make some good habits in weekly and just a daily basis. And so people ask like, how do you balance all this? Well, what is balance? Do we balance anything ever? Like, because like, you know, like we have an essay due on Thursdays, so why would we spend all of this time doing like a theory assignment is due in 2 weeks? Like we need to really allow ourselves to be vulnerable on a daily to day basis. We can, because we have people that are like, oh, I'm exclusively a morning practicer, but what happens if you have to do this thing and then you can't practice in the day? Well, like practice in the night. Like we need to, I think you can over plan yourself too.
100%. Yeah, I never found it helpful to schedule my practice time when I was under that level of duress. It only worked when I was like in my master's, when I had time.
Exactly.
Ironically, you know, when I had time to like say I'm gonna practice this time, then I could do it, you know. But it's very, very difficult when you're in your undergrad and you're just being like, you're just constantly beaten with assignments, and
I know,
like
and I see people with these like. I see people with their colorful journals. I'm like, I don't even have. I bought one, but it's sealed. Like for this year, I'm just like, I don't know how to do this, and I don't think it's ever going to come in handy until maybe I decide to one day, like, okay, I'll just do this because it's kind of like a fun thing. It makes it obviously like I think it really makes yourself accountable for like practice routines, but like. There's just no way I can look at a planner and say like Monday in this block, that's what I'm going to practice. Like no, I'm going to figure that out when I have coffee in the morning.
Exactly. And you know, sometimes you have to be flexible. Like, you know, what I try to always say with my students is like, never have a 0 day. You know, like try to not have days. You know, there will always be days that are so difficult. You know. Yeah. But when we have like those days where it's like I have like 4 essays to write, well, it's not realistic for me to practice like the same amount that I would normally. So maybe you just say, don't have a 0 day. Like hold the guitar for
Yeah.
like a minute.
It's like progress can really come in not just hours but minutes, not necessarily thinking in
It's
days
true.
or weeks. Like that's way too long term, and that's way too you kind of segment yourself in a way, and like I don't really think, and because then maybe like you have this day where you're like really inspired, like you maybe you see an online concert of very recent Canadian music, and then you can be like, okay, well there's an idea that I could throw into my practice routine. And so like I think that we need to have a little bit of a room for some surprises in there too, because sometimes we can always say that never truly ever goes as planned. We like to be as close as possible, but sometimes we like to kind of utilize that as a source of inspiration and to something that can really relay for some good ideas and good progress with.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And so you're at Memorial University right now in Newfoundland, and this is not a place that a lot of people around the world know about, St. John's, Newfoundland. But in the Canadian guitar scene, there has been a legacy of guitarists, yourself, Adam Badstone, Steve Cowan, and many other guitarists have kind of come out of here and really taken over. And tell us what it's like to be a part of that. What is the scene like there? And what is it like being in a scene that's so far away from the rest of Canada?
Right, and I think that one of the things that made me feel a little bit less far away was going to things like Domaine Forget and the Guitar Le Grande, and so like putting myself out to these festivals and playing and interacting. So I don't really feel necessarily like I live on an island at times. Like I'm in touch with people that are in all these different programs and schools all time, all day, and so like and I obviously with this time we're in, it's a little bit easier. So I think that's been a bit of a nice thing to a bit of a start. But I think in the general broad scene, I mean, we're not getting David Russell every year. We're not getting all these big concert series, and so I think really it's more or less something that's kind of been just started. I think you probably know that myself and Steve Murphy started the Atlantic Guitar Society back in 2020, which was what a great year to start a nonprofit, right? so then going forward, and it's like we really discovered that there's so many good players. But it's not that the playing has never existed. It's just never really been brought together before. And so I think in my experience of going to things like festivals, I think I had a really good insight, I guess a vision for how this could go down. And so we've had some really great success in our events. The Guitar on the Coast, which was right before the lockdown. Like we had to close off our audience to just kind of hang out and do some master classes and concerts and stuff for each other. And then we had the virtual retreat and then another showcase concert back in the fall of last year. And so the playing caliber has been fantastic. That's, of course, not what it's actually about. It's just about, loving the instrument, appreciating it, and educating. And so going forward, those are all our goals, is to grow and really foster an interest for this versatile and beautiful instrument. And so that's kind of what we have to keep saying to ourselves, because us guitarists, we love to bash ourselves and make fun of how our instrument is at such a questionable place in the classical music at times, I think. And so I think that if we allow ourselves to kind of like put on these Mickey ears or something to just really be like so positive and like cheery, then I think that can be like the source of inspiration. Yeah, like so like it's
guitar is fun, guys.
I know, yeah, it's not gonna like make you grow these freakishly long nails and change strings every month, right? It's completely positive. And so like yeah, and going forward to the future, I mean, Guitar Society, I mean, like, geez, we have like a ton of followers on Instagram in the span of a year because people know what a Guitar Society is. Maybe not everybody knows what the Atlantic is. I mean, some people know about the ocean and geography and stuff, and so and so like some people know, yeah, exactly. Yeah, because a lot of people are just like, nobody knows where Newfoundland is. I'm impressed you actually know how to say Newfoundland right. Everybody says Newfoundland, and I'm like, come on, it's not it. It's Newfoundland.
Newfoundland?
Yeah, Newfin, and not even with a D
like
in the end.
Finland,
See, you're
but the
even
new
better.
version?
Yeah, that's precisely it. And so we're under this a kind of like a shade of people just not knowing about the fact, because like you see a Canadian commercial all the way from Vancouver to Nova Scotia. That's across Canada, right? No, but what about this big island over here? So we need to. Yeah. So I think that finding these projects and putting ourselves out there and so people like Steve and Adam, of course, the first thing they did after their undergrad was took off to the mainland. And so there's
right.
And I'm about to do that myself too. And so obviously, yeah, and so obviously, like we need to kind of plant the seed, because it's a pretty fertile ground, and we have a great history, like I said, of music education and just a general appreciation for music in rural communities and in the bigger cities, anywhere. And so if it's possible there, it's possible here, I think.
Wow. Yeah, it's a really exciting time to be pioneering these things. It's a really exciting time to be bringing the classical guitar to the new world. The new world.
Yeah. Make it yours.
Yeah. So I'm really interested. This is a question I always ask everyone when they come on to the channel. How do you feel the live stream experience differs from a regular concert experience? What are some of the differences you felt in the performance from the performance perspective?
Yeah, I found the live stream, especially versus a pre-recorded, so much better. But let's pretend pre-recorded doesn't exist. Like, this is the first week of March when this all happened. So, like, what we were doing was live streaming. And so I think that, obviously, there's this little bit of shock, I think, with the fact that you play a piece and you come off this big ending, like the Follow Birds, and it's like, and so you're expecting, like, at least a little bit of this. And so you're just looking at a camera, and, like, I remember, like, I was listening to Rene Izquierdo on a podcast. He's like, I hate this. Like, I don't want to play a piece into an empty camera anymore. It's so depressing. But at the same time, we can think about this as a tool, as kind of like a different craft, rather than, I don't think it's the same or even similar to live concert playing. Right. Rather, it's its own thing, and I think that we're starting to discover that with things like Zoom. We can have conversations. We can like have these virtual chamber music things without like latency and stuff. And so there's a lot of potential for that, and I think that there's been a lot of benefit in the fact that people are really stepping their game up with technology and things. Except for my interface tonight, which was giving me a hard time, but of course, like, we're really understanding the importance of producing like extremely great content, and that's something that like a lot of guitarists are so big on, is investing in a good microphone and taking those tutorials and things like OBS and for teaching as well too. Geez, I mean, I think online teaching is definitely going to be a feature of things going forward, and so really learning to operate. Yeah, it's because especially like you can have a lesson with whoever. Like I've had master classes with people from around the world and stuff like that, and so that's definitely going to be something that we're going to want to be really skilled in. And so sharing a screen, marking in some fingerings, and that's been kind of great in a lot of ways, especially with younger people. They're so like, oh, it's a screen, and then they're like, they can color along, they can write in things, and you can hear them play, and you can kind of get that attention so fast. I guess it's because with like the generation we're in, and everybody's so glued to screens, and so that's definitely a really profitable area, we'll say, for music making is online, even though it's never going to sound as good as it does in person. But it's just something that I guess we kind of we adapt with. We learn to dance in the rain, I guess.
Yeah, and I think eventually we're going to start seeing live streams, and we're already starting to see them. If you look on Twitch and stuff, we're going to start to see live streams that look kind of like a television show. They just like that level of sound production quality, and audio and video quality, and I think we're kind of moving towards that. But it really brings the standard quite high for the instruments. But then I always think to myself, am I really gonna make those investments? Like we just bought like one of these Ashton like laser microphones, these really fancy ones that Nate Bredesen was referring me to.
Oh,
They're just fantastic. And I think Adam Ciccoletti uses them too. They're just fantastic. It's not for this, but we just bought them for Nalco and I's duo, and it's just nice. These mics are so high quality, and you think this is such a large investment, but when you think about like what we invest in our instruments, for example, it's only a fraction of the cost,
Absolutely, because like a concert guitar is way more than a decent microphone, even one that can produce a concert like this. And so, yeah, like I think that's definitely improved our standard a lot. And so, and by also recording ourselves on a regular basis, I think everybody's playing has gotten so much better too. Like, especially all these people that are absolutely phenomenal in competitions. Like, and the playing is pristine, and there's no buzzing, and you can go back and you can utilize this. Well, not in a very competitive, like, I'm going to get out of that mindset for a second, but it's really artistically beneficial because we're recording ourselves so much. We're making good videos, and obviously not only can we just dump that on Instagram, but we can like really utilize that as kind of like a practice log. Okay, here's this run that I'd like to improve on, and then you can just really crank that down, and then you just have a lot more solid performances going forward.
Yeah, I definitely found that when I was doing streaming with Twitch. I was regularly streaming with Twitch, doing practice sessions, and I found like it really helped my playing, and it's very, there are a lot of people who are doing this. They just do practice streams all day.
I think that can be especially like if you're like looking for some new way of really changing your practice routine a little bit. But also as a practicer streaming, I feel like the whole time I would just be like, oh shit, don't make a mistake, oh shit. But like, I think that little bit of pressure it's kind of like a private lesson in a way. Like you're preparing an excerpt of a movement of a sonata or something, and you're like, and so like you can really just kind of like put your feet down and just really practice with extreme focus. And so that's kind of a nice thing as well, because sometimes, I mean, the second you put this in the room, I have to have my phone in a different room in order to get a really deadly practice session in, because if it's right next door, then like it's just going to be like, it's just going to flash, it's just going to do all the things and really get in the way. And so I think that's definitely a cool tool. Yeah.
Sometimes I call it demon machine.
Right.
It's just always trying to get my attention, you know?
I know, exactly. See?
Explosions. It's always, see, it just attacked me there.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. So can you tell me, I want to redirect the conversation to your album again. And so this album is called Prime. It's very exciting. You're making your debut album coming out of your undergrad. This is very unusual. Can you tell us a little bit about how this project came into fruition?
Yeah, I think this was kind of like one of those moments where I just kind of like went for it. And so the Newfoundland Provincial Arts Councils have been tremendously supportive to artists and the musicians, especially during this COVID time. A lot of these funds were based around COVID. And so I think when I entered this, like, obviously, you know, our trip to Portugal got canceled for the conference and just things like that. And so I kind of like asked myself, what are some long-term goals? And I think I kind of thought about doing one after my undergrad anyways. And so we were in this position. We were just at home, and I think I had the technology at the time. I rented a different interface at the time, as well as I put some blankets around me and created this kind of like makeshift studio. And I did it right here in this basement with the recording, and I recorded several takes. Some of them were just one. Violence was one take, which was really exciting, and as well as some Andrew Stanley stuff that I've been playing for years. And so I think I also did a little bit of the editing myself, and so then we transferred the WAV files to Michelle Decora, who's the sound engineer, also doing work with the conference, and then she came back and mastered it, and so it sounded like this somewhere between like there and Drew Henderson. I feel like it's got to be like right there. Like it's really amazing what she was able to do with that, because of course Drew, he's in these churches, and so that's the one thing I was missing out on, was being in that massive space.
Yeah, I'm recording with Drew right now, and he's next level. It's pretty scary how good he is.
Oh yeah, like we have like a new Norbert Kraft among us, just like as a player, but also a recording artist too. It's phenomenal, and so I'd love to work with him. It's
somewhat intimidating from time to time. You're like, oh god, this guy's so good at guitar, and I'm just playing in front of him.
Right, exactly. It's not fair.
Really something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, that says a lot about that kind of scene. And I think also this is such a like artistic statement, I think too. Like I'm so big on the fact that like the guitar is in its prime, and like because you know, like we're having these a lot of new advances in guitar composer relationships, all these things in like the Soundboard magazine. We're really experimenting with microtonality and extended techniques. We're discovering so many new things on like a monthly basis. And so I think that all of this 21st century music by Canadian composers, a lot from Atlantic Canada, which is kind of cool, I think really depicts obviously the kind of the people I've worked with almost all of the composers, and as well as I think really represents a lot of versatility with the guitar, and like I said, I really tried to go for some contrasting moods, especially within Steve Murphy's suite, which I thought I played very well tonight. I was really happy with that performance. And,
it was a really great performance of that piece.
Yeah, and so like and especially as a Canadian, and this is something that we talk about a lot in Memorial University. Like, I don't want to go around with music that says Canada is so great, that we were here first. Like, this is so with all this nationalism bullshit, pretty much. And like, I really want to just make it clear that like when my repertoire choice, that I want to support this community, and I want to nurture a relationship with musicians in our little community, rather than kind of try to paint this Canada is so good, like we're the best country in the world, like stolen land kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah. Also, Canadian nationalism always just feels like very I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this. It feels very like an oxymoron almost. It doesn't feel like
it doesn't exist.
It's never felt It's always felt confusing to me.
Right, exactly. It's like, but how can you be like so prideful and claim like ownership of something that's not even yours, right? Like,
Right. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's so many problems with nationhood, and yeah, and colonialism, all these different problems. But also, just like so much of the demographic, and at least in, I don't know, this part of Canada, I'm sure it's very different in Newfoundland, but it's very bizarre. They tell somebody, so you're like, where are you from? And I'll be like, oh, my dad's from Trinidad, my mom is from Montreal, but she's white, Irish, Scottish, but goes back to India on my dad's side, and they're like, oh, so you're just Canadian.
right. It's like what the heck does that mean,
here.
right? Especially like that's something I don't really relate to in Newfoundland. I think in St. John's we have a lot of that, especially at like Mud and stuff, and as well as like the high school I went to and stuff. But you go to like just an hour down the highway, and you can find somebody that's never left their community in their life, and like
Wow.
like somebody that's like really really true to their Newfoundland genes, like almost purely. And so like there's that. I think we definitely have a clear identity in that regard, and so
Yeah.
and that can definitely influence like a lot of musical things. So, well, except for maybe people like Jason Noble. I mean, I think he obviously wrote that in his Montreal time, like during his doctorate, and commissioned that with Steve, who was also doing his doctorate. And so they really kind of got away from the identity of what like a Newfoundland music would sound like, I think. And I don't really know if that even would be a thing in contemporary classical music setting, especially considering like we never joined Canada until 1949 or something. And so this is during like Babbitt and Henze and those kinds of composers. And so if we had like a pioneer classical composer like in a textbook, it would be around then. And that's when we had this Darmstadt school going around. And so I think that like there's if we have a history of a classical music identity in Newfoundland at all, it's 100% drawn from all kinds of other things.
Right. Wow. No, that is a really interesting thing about Newfoundland, though. It really is like a very distinct community, and it is a really very distinct, area of Canada. It always has felt like, always has felt like a different country. You fought in World War II as a different country, right? So
yeah, exactly.
It's very interesting as a dominion of Britain, right? So it's
right, exactly.
very interesting. It's a completely different place, and so yeah, it's very. That's just not something that you experience in this part of like the greater Toronto area. It's like it's much more of a mishmash. You'll find.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's very very interesting. Yeah, this is really amazing. So, how did you teach yourself how to do all this recording stuff? Did you already know how to do it before or did recording this album kind of force you to learn?
I think it forced me to learn a lot of things, such as like working with a good interface, mic placement, and like how much gain I want in certain situations, and learning about things like clipping, and as well as and when I came together to editing as well, that was really important. And really mastering, I think, the art of recording, because recording is a different process to me than performing on stage. And so you have to kind of have a different mindset with your repertoire, so that you're going to be like very accurate and very crystal clear what it is that you're trying to depict. And so I think that recording, I do more videos, obviously as a student, but that's like what we do with the guitar studio and stuff nowadays, and as well as for other things like pre-recorded concerts, etc. And so I think that I was really interested in learning, and I'm still learning. We're all learning all the time about ways of working with different kinds of microphone placements, microphone setups, and just ways of approaching recording that can kind of depict a different angle on things, because I like to think that there's kind of a balance, but in this case there is a balance between depth and detail. Like you want to think about like the detail of a certain piece. Like you really want these nuances to be so clear, but the guitar has to sing and to resonate. And so I just hit my microphone. Oops. And so we have we have to think about in the setting that we're in. And so you can think about that could dictate maybe how you're playing into your microphone, and as well as like some kinds of settings like that. That's very artistic, but from a technical perspective, I think it's really important to think about the setups that are really gonna just paint the picture and create something that's obviously very high quality, but something that really helps bring out the best in your music that you're playing.
Yeah, this is really great. And so at this point in we've already mentioned it before, but you're transitioning into your masters right now, and I won't put you on the spot and make you disclose anything.
I don't want to decide right now.
but right now you're applying to 3 different schools, and you have a lot of decisions to make. What are your real plans for after that's done? Like where do you see your career going afterward?
Obviously, like, I like to see myself do the doctorate. Well, for the obvious reason that I've been saying for like a million years, it's been to be Dr. Diamond. But like that obviously is, I think that like I really like the idea of furthering my academic focus, as well as and I think that like I've already kind of knocked off a couple of terms and things that I really like to kind of develop on, like these golden bricks, we'll say. Like I really love working with electronics, I love improvising, and so there's room to kind of nurture that and to come up with some ideas with a dissertation project, and as well as really further my focus even more, because maybe not necessarily even with just Canadian composers, it could be composers from anywhere, so that something that really establishes, I think, obviously like my own voice in the repertoire I choose, but something that can also, I think, propel what it is that we do, what contemporary music is for guitar in different ways, because we have lots to discover out there. Lots of things, such as like there's some odd chamber music combinations that we've never really done before. You don't see very many 4 running guitar viola duos. Maybe I know Kevin Lowe does lots of great work with it, with his bass duo, and so there's all kinds of different settings that we can experiment with. And so I think that it's a matter of picking which one I think I can see myself using for the long term, as in like the rest of my career.
Wow, that's really, yeah, lot of great ideas there. It's really interesting that you said like you're trying to like narrow your focus, or not narrow your focus, but deepen your focus on one thing. I always find that the doctorate later on seems to be like an opportunity to sort of ironically broaden the horizons. It's like an opportunity to sort of like find another thing that can you can bridge the gap between, because so much has already been done in a way that it can sometimes be easier to find a new thing, and then bridge the gap and between those things. But
okay, I'll take a note of that, because of course like I'm such a young person, so like I don't have all this figured out yet. I have no idea what a doctorate even really looks like, so like other than just Doctor of Musical Arts, there we go. So like I know that it involves going to school and playing guitar, like so somewhere in that I think it's so important to obviously remain well-rounded, and like I love teaching, I love playing concerts, I love doing all these other things, and working with the Guitar Society and doing stuff like that is kind of really important to me too. Maybe I'll dwell upon choral music stuff for a bit too, because I really enjoy that, because I think that's kind of like our classical music scene in Newfoundland, by the way, is choral music. We have lots of really amazing competitive amateur choirs that go to stuff like world choir games and get like a 3rd place. It's wild. And so we have like and so obviously like and I've met connections in there with composers and stuff like that too, and so it's and as well as Jason Noble, arguably, he likes to, and I think that is very true, is his choral writing is really the foreground of what he does, and it's really phenomenal to also, that's a good sign of being well-rounded right there already, because like while it's so cool to like be prime and to like and to really play all this repertoire, like I am enjoying, quite frankly, like the Ponce Sonata I'm playing in my 4th year, and as well as like some Dowland Fantasias and Bach suites. I think Bach is incredible. We learn lots from that too. So somewhere there's a balance between being very specific and well-rounded, like, or is it a balance again? Like it's thinking those 2 ideas in mind, because you have to be specific and you have to be well-rounded, like which is which.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like when I play so much contemporary music and then I go back to something like Bach, or I go back to something like I have like Lacrimae Provence on my score by John Dowland. I've just been playing this for fun recently. When I play this kind of music, sometimes it's like refreshing, like it's like cold water on your face after you've been living
swimming in lava
and just nebulousness all the time.
Oh yeah, like you need to have a filter. Like if I did exclusively new music, I mean, I think you would definitely lose a lot of the enthusiasm. You need to take breaks just from the instrument. It doesn't even have to be just like Dowland or Barrios. It can be like just completely other stuff. Like and I think it's important to expose yourself to that kind of world too, because like I mean, like we're in a situation where like like we kind of have to tell ourselves like what is the role of a classical guitarist in society, like yeah, there's wildfires, there's all of these things happening, and so like we need to really make sure that we're aware and just really kind of put ourselves in perspective for a minute, and just like, because what we do is the world to us, but maybe not necessarily the world all the time,
Right. Yeah. That's a very good point. It is the world to us, but what is it for the rest of the world? How do you find audiences tend to respond when you play, this new music? And you said like just shortly outside of St. John's, there are communities where people like don't leave, like they just live there forever. Like, have you ever played in these communities, and how do they respond to this type of music?
I have very specifically, actually, in my second year. I was in a one-credit chamber ensemble roadshow called the Mud Music 10, and so I was part of a 10-piece chamber ensemble, and so we did lots of everything. It wasn't necessarily exclusively new music. We did like some Stravinsky. I played a Turina piece, and as well as that amazing. We had a violinist with us, and she played a Stomp by like Jean Corigliano with like the da 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 da, and so like. Right. Kind of tying in those bluegrass elements. And so with Spanish, I was talking about like rasguero and the flamenco influence, and Stravinsky, like the soldier's tale, because we're so passionate about like veterans here and war history. And so like picking repertoire that has that relationship and something that you can really kind of narrate on and dwell was so important with outreach. And that's one of the first things I learned when you outreach in these smaller communities, because outreach for you guys in Toronto is probably going to like, I don't know, Sudbury, like, and we don't have places like that everywhere. You can have a town in Newfoundland that's like 100 people. That's hilarious. My friend Patrick Yasko is gonna kill me for saying that.
I don't know. Yeah, when we do outreach, it just means something completely different. It doesn't mean we leave the GTA. It just usually means, it's
do you lose cell service and stuff like that? Because that's what we do.
Wow, no, I don't. I've never been to a place. I went to Gatineau Park in Quebec. There's like spots in there where you lose cell service, but other than that, I've never been to a place where you lose cell service.
Yeah, no, we could be playing in the woods, and like we could like, and like the power will go out, and it's like, oh, there it is again, and like there's that kind of like, I don't want to say third world, because I mean you have access to all your needs, and you have a hospital down the road, but like you're really isolated, and like that's 100% so true, and that's why we kind of have a big role.
Yeah, you guys are like, everyone calls it Atlantic Canada, but Newfoundland is really the Arctic Circle, right? Like is
that's very true, and especially Labrador too. Like they'll have snow up there till June, and like we think we have snow late up here. Like the population is so sparse. Obviously, it's very dense here in St. John's, the capital city. It's one of the bigger cities in Atlantic Canada when you combine Nova Scotia and New Brunswick and stuff. But but generally, like, you can find towns of less than 100 people, and because like you have this massive island, it's so incredibly large. It takes like 12 hours to get to this port called Port aux Basques, which we get the ferry to go to Nova Scotia. So like, and so like a 12-hour drive, where would that take you from Toronto? Like Florida. Like that's such a big haul. Like, again, I have terrible geography, and here I am talking about it, but like like you can go a lot of places in 12 hours, but in Newfoundland you just go to a different town.
It's so funny because I've talked to people from like these remote communities. It's like, I'm not saying St. John's is that remote. St. John's is a big city.
In some ways, yes.
It's like an upper mid-sized city, right? But it's like, but like I've talked to people like in Iqaluit and like in Alaska, and the idea is like they people in Alaska, they call like everything that's not Alaska the outside. And Iqaluit calls everything, like all the Canadians who are in my place, they call us Southerners. So like, do you have like words for people who are not in Newfoundland? Like, is there like a term for that?
Yeah, it's really just mainlanders. And like
mainlanders, okay.
Yeah, because like you're part of the mainland, and but you have to ask yourself where Labrador is, because that's connected to Quebec, and so like I think that there's still Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. For a long time, they like you have like abbreviations for provinces: ON, QC, and B. For a long time, we were just NF, And so then we eventually changed it to NL because Newfoundland, Labrador. And so there's been that kind of
Right.
like, we're obviously like the same province, and like you have like a lot of frequent relationships, especially along like the northern tips, St. Anthony, and like Lanceau Meadows, which is where a part of that Arctic Sonata piece is based out of, that Steve plays. And
Right.
and so like we have that influence, and like there's a strong connection obviously with like a northern population, but I don't necessarily feel that Arctic here. Like it's we have pretty decent summers, not like heat wave summers, but like and like we do have like I think arguably 4 seasons. We have basically like a sprinter is what we call it. We have like just cold ass spring pretty much for like forever. And so like that can definitely affect like your education and like your exposure. We still don't have Uber here, by the way. So like, and like, how long have you had Uber or you are? Like, it's it's like, I know, right?
I've had Uber since I was in like first year university, like 11 years ago. It's crazy.
Really?
That's crazy.
Wow. Like I go to
I've never
Ubers
lived in
everywhere
a
else.
place
Yeah,
Yeah,
and like
that's-
I can get a car in like 5 minutes. This is amazing. Like I guess you kind of get that sort of gratitude because like I remember like I went to Ale Grande for the first time, and one of the concerts was the Ramiros, and like I was just like, wow, I'm seeing classical guitar. But like everybody else in the scene, I mean, we just saw the Canadian Quartet the night before, which is like some of the best musicians I've ever seen in my whole life. They're freaking amazing. And so like, and then the next night, like like with all niceness ahead, I mean, like it just wasn't the same magnitude of concert. And so like I was like so like lost for words, but people were just like, all right, what's the next thing? Because like you have that exposure, right? And so and that's amazing. That's a really big goal within the, I think, Newfoundland with the Guitar Society and everything else, because there's all kinds of musicians in the same boat right now.
Wow. In the same boat, like it's an island.
Yeah, like same. It's like a really big rocky boat, so.
that's awesome, man. It's really cool, because I think you're the first. Well, we've had Steve on here before, but this is the first live stream from Newfoundland that we've had in the unique Newfoundland time zone. And there's so many new things about this program. It's all new music, and you're playing all this great stuff, and you're like a very young player. So it's really cool. You are the youngest person who we've ever asked to play here, and
that's
this is
cool.
the 22nd concert. So you're doing some really cool things. You're always active in social media. I'm always seeing you all over Facebook, all over Instagram.
Yeah.
It's like Ben Diamond, Ben Diamond, Ben Diamond. So it's like I couldn't ignore you. I'm like, oh man, gotta ask this guy to play.
Or else I'll just end up going to the concert anyways.
I gotta ask him.
Yeah, because that's definitely something I feel maybe a little bit of guilt about. Just like, oh look, Ben's plugging another show or something like that. But like, I think that like obviously we want to share our art and do art and stuff. But social media was so important in my career development, for especially being here. Like to like regularly post practice updates and to network and comment on people's stuff. That's how I got to know people in advance. And so like I remember my first guitar festival all the way in Victoria, BC, the Guitar Summer Academy, where Steve played a concert. That's the one Alexander Dunn runs. And so I connected with Simon Farintosh on Instagram, and so like I knew him before. And so
That's awesome.
Oh, well, that's we're gonna have to plug that. He's a super incredible player. That's gonna be great.
It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, and so because I learned him on
the coast.
right, really, and so like
really.
I learned about him on Instagram, and then so I knew he was going to the festival, and then we just happened to meet up at the airport, and he drove me one way, and then he drove me the other way, and so like, and these are little things that can kind of go a long way, especially in the arts, and so like if you're invited to play a concert in Ottawa or Toronto, it's great to know somebody that you can crash with, and I remember Ben Borg let me crash on his couch at the second Guitar de Grande, and then you meet people at these things like Domaine Forger, and I think that's really important to kind of have the learning hat on while you're an undergrad too, because but you might expect all of a sudden you finish a degree and like, okay, where's my career now? Why aren't I being invited to play at the GFA? Well, like there's you have to take little bits of baby steps, like you have to go out and play like sometimes these free concerts when you're like a young person. Like when I was like 18, like I would play for like a fundraiser, and then that's when you can start to make business cards, and then it slowly picks up momentum. It's an exponential curve, and I think that a lot of the big Instagrammers will tell you that too. Like they didn't hit 100,000 followers in a year.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, it's just it's a constant thing, and Constant for the End of Time has been like that too. It's just constant. You have to just constantly push. You're just constantly expanding. And it's gradual, and it seems to work the best for people who are consistent, who keep putting out content, who keep doing those things. That's the trickiest thing I find.
Exactly.
You know, really being consistent.
I know, because in a very inconsistent field.
Yes, in a very very inconsistent time. You know, a time when
tell me.
You know, it's like, oh, you can go outside today. You can't go outside today.
Okay, you can go outside tomorrow though.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really weird world. I mean, we can go outside. I shouldn't say stupid stuff like that. I mean, of course, there's no time in Toronto where you can't go outside. We don't have curfews like they have in Quebec. But going to restaurants, for example, has not been a thing we've been able to do for 3 months now.
Yeah.
So we're in what they call the gray zone, which is like the worst. The worst zone. So you can basically order pizza. You can order from stores, but you can't go the stores have like a little thing in the front. You open the door, and you get the food
right out of the Black Death Plague. Like it's like you had these little holes for like serving wine and stuff. It's so real.
Yeah, it's really bizarre to be alive during this time. But I think social media is, killing us and keeping us alive at the same time.
Quite literally, yeah. It's funny like that.
Very much. So, it's getting towards that time, and I just want to thank you so much for everything you've played today, everything you did, and for anyone who is watching this who hasn't donated yet. Please donate to this wonderful man, this wonderful performance. Ben, gave such a great performance, and every single donation that goes to Concerts for the End of Time, 100% goes to the performer. It's a very rare concert series in that sense. I do not profit from this, and I don't wish to profit from this. So all of this project goes directly towards the artist. So,
this is a great initiative, man. Thank you.
This is how we pay them. This is how we can have great people like Ben and so many other great artists, come on here and give such powerful performances, without a real budget, without being a large corporation, without taking corporate donors, without having corporate sponsorships. We're able to do this just as I am able to do this as a completely independent free agent, and we can just have all these great music happening. So please donate. You should be able to see the link there. It's being posted by Streamlabs on Twitch, and if you are on Facebook, you'll see the link pinned to the comments. So any donations you make will go directly to Ben, and thank you so much, Ben.
Wow, it's a real pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And of course, to be a young person on this is a big honor. I mean, you have Simon next week. You had Abshir Miller 2 weeks ago. Michael Libson, Steve, Adam, all these great guitarists that I look up to, seriously. And so to be amongst this crowd is, I feel very fortunate. I feel like I'm doing the right thing. And it's I have a lot of things to be grateful for. And I think that while we're in this pandemic and there's a lot of things that we kind of resent and like, oh, I wish we did this. And we can regret a lot of things. It's important to, count your blessings at sometimes. And the big one for me has just been support, not just the community and the guitar, but family, friends, mentors, peers, educators, everybody. There's just no way, despite the fact that I played a one instrument show, that it's a one-man show.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. It takes a village.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, it takes a village.
A village of approximately 100 people with no cell service.
I just want to say I really appreciate your perspective, Ben. You have profound wisdom for someone your age, and for shouldn't talk like an old man like that. But you really are. It was great talking to you. Great listening to this performance, and I hope to have you again in future concerts. So
we will absolutely be in touch too. Yeah, and likewise.
Definitely.
This was a great time, and I look forward to collaborating with you again in the future.
All right.